So let's see if you did your homework. Who made you? Yeah, that's good. You got that one right. How about the next one? And why did God make you? To know Him, to love Him in this life, and to be happy with Him in the next. Okay, B minus. But you got it nonetheless, right? And it really speaks to us of God's plan. You know, those simple questions and answers really speak of the reality of God's plan for us in our lives. The fact that God's in charge and that what we must do is submit ourselves to His plan. And the way that we submit ourselves to His plan, the place where we do that is at the cross of Jesus Christ. Because the cross indeed is our trademark. It's that one thing that really is unique to us as Catholic Christians. You know, as Christians, we're the only ones that have a cross as kind of our trademark. Nobody else does. It's our brand, and much like wearing designer clothes, it's something that every one of us should want to wear. In fact, it's a tattoo. It marks us, and that mark comes when we are baptized and we receive that gift of the Holy Spirit in our lives. And those who have this trademark, this brand, this tattoo, those on this bus acknowledge that we're on a journey. We are a movement. We're not standing still. We're moving. And on this bus, everyone must be willing to find ways to evangelize, find ways to be deliberate, intentional disciples. In fact, our first task on this bus is to evangelize. And that evangelization is a very simple thing, as I've been saying these last weeks. It's not difficult. It starts with a willingness to pray and to daily prayer, but also to invite others into prayer, and also to say, how can I pray for you? How can I pray for you? To invite others to experience what you experience, what I experience here as we worship together, and to welcome those who come into our place. You are welcome here, and to make room for people who come in behind you to be evangelists. That's the first task. The second task is to become a deliberate, intentional disciple. If you want to be on this bus, then that's not an option. It's essential. And what it means is a willingness to care for others, to care for things no matter what that are the needs of other people, to learn from the message that you hear in the gospel, and to take what you learn and put it into practice. And then to do what God made us to do. Because made in the image and likeness of God, we are like God. We are to do what God does, and what God does is to love. And love is simply willing the good of other, to do what is good for others, even when what is good is difficult. There is a third task. I suspect that would make sense for you. This is being the third week of this little series. But before I get to the third task, I'd like to offer a kind of disclaimer. And the disclaimer goes something like this. Jesus had many opportunities, but never took them. Many opportunities to back down from His message and to say, no, you really don't have to do that. But He never did. He never backed down. He was always pushing to get people to come to the cross, because He knew what that meant and what the result of that would be. If Jesus doesn't back down, nor can we, from this message of the cross of Jesus Christ, nor will I. These tasks are really a part of God's plan for our lives and how we are to live our lives each and every day. People who get tattoos, don't they want to typically show them off? Typically, maybe not always, but don't they typically, you get a tattoo, hey, check this out, right? Don't we do that? I don't do that. I don't have any tattoos. That is never going to happen. I came about this close. I thought about it for 2 seconds and the thought went away. I will never do that. But there's nothing really wrong with it in a sense, because when you stop and think about it, it's permanent, but it's there because of something that's important in your life. And we want to show that off. Don't we wear brand clothes, designer clothes, because we want to show that off? It's wearing the swoosh of Nike, there's something about that. And we all value trademarks. When we see that this is a trademark, especially for a renowned, known company, we say, this is really important to me. Trademarks, brands, and tattoos. However, it may seem as though these tasks of evangelization, of becoming a deliberate disciple, and even what I'll talk about in just a moment, are limited in their scope and limited in what you can do with them. But that's not true. That's not true. There's many ways to evangelize, just as there are many ways to pray and to make prayer a legitimate part of your life. And different people do that in different kinds of ways. There's many ways to invite and certainly many ways to welcome, just as there are many different ways for one to become an intentional disciple, to care and to learn and to do what is good, to love. The practical suggestions that I give to you in this series are really limited only in as much as I only have a few minutes to tell you what I need to tell you. If we were to go through it all, you'd be surprised. I think everybody would come up with something very different. And they would all be quite legitimate. It seems that this bus that we're on might have only a limited number of seats. Not true. There's room on this bus for everyone, because everyone is invited into a relationship with Jesus Christ. Jesus came to proclaim the good news to all the nations, to everyone. So everyone is welcome. But with that welcome and with that coming into this relationship, there is a necessity to respond. There has to be a willingness to respond, to become an evangelist, to become an intentional disciple. And I acknowledge that not everyone is in the same place with all of that. Not everyone is in the same place on the journey. In fact, not every one of us can be sitting right next to the driver, right, on the bus. Some people are sitting in the back and some in the front, and that's okay. And hopefully we all move in the same direction, doing the same kind of things. So being an evangelist, being an intentional disciple are the first two tasks that we must all come to value. And I want to kind of consider also another aspect of this. I acknowledge that there might be some of you who are here new to the parish, here for the first time in these last weeks, having never been here before, having never heard our message and what it is that we value. And, well, you're welcome. And what I'd like you to do is just sit back and relax, because you've made the first step just by being here. But for those of you that have been here for quite a while, the push is on to be an evangelist, to become an intentional disciple. And this third value, this third task, this third behavior, and that is the burden of serving. We hear this in the gospel with Martha, who was burdened by much serving. And she came to Jesus and said, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me by myself to do the serving?" That's the third task, a willingness to serve, to be a servant. Service, again, like evangelization, like intentional discipleship, is not all that difficult. It simply are those good things that we do for others, the things that show and prove that indeed we are intentional disciples. Isn't that what Jesus commands when he says, love God and love neighbor? I think so. Admittedly, at the same time, though, that care for others and the good that we do for others really needs to be tempered by the care and the good that we give even to ourselves. Because if we don't take care of ourselves, how would we ever be able to take care of anyone else, right? I like to go to the gym and exercise, and I do that 2 or 3 times a week. And I do that so that I have the physical strength and even the emotional strength to stand in front of you and serve you week after week, day after day. I take care of myself so that I can take care of you. If it looks like today I might be moving a little gingerly, I was at the gym yesterday morning and I discovered as part of the workout that at 56 almost years old, I can't keep up with 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. I try, but I'm quickly discovering that I can't. We did some lifting, weightlifting and whatnot early, and then afterwards we were doing some sprints outside, and I was running and I pulled my hamstring on my leg. And boy, you want to talk about pain? Oy, oy, oy. Yesterday I could hardly walk. I'm much better today, but it's still sore, very sore. So, it would be like yesterday afternoon, all I wanted to do was go and sit down and put my leg up and ice it and that sort of thing. But, I was here to celebrate with you, with the 4 o'clock crowd. We have to take care of ourselves so that we can indeed take care of one another. Let's go on and look more at this idea of service, because the story that we hear from the first reading in the book of Exodus really gives us a clue as to how it works. Abraham saw these 3 men standing nearby, and when he saw them, he ran to greet them. He goes out to them and says, "Hey, I don't know you. Welcome. You're here. Welcome." And he says to them, "Sir, please do not go on past your servant. Let some water be brought that you may bathe your feet and then rest yourselves under the tree. Let me bring you a little food that you may refresh yourselves." Obviously, Abraham sees himself in his role as servant, to be of service, to be a help to others, much like Martha in the gospel. He sees himself as one who serves. And that service is simply meeting the practical needs of those who visit him. Just as Martha is desirous to meet the practical needs of Jesus, who is visiting her and her family. Abraham and Martha have both welcomed, and now here are the practical needs that you have: refreshment and rest, food and shelter. And that's really what service is all about. Practical needs and the fulfillment of them. And in truth, at some point, on some level, every one of us needs help fulfilling our own practical needs. We do, don't we? Is there anyone here who has a garden? Anybody have gardens in the yard, where you might grow some vegetables and that sort of thing? Yeah? A few of you do. I have one in my yard that Tom plants for me. It's Tom's garden, because my thumbs are not green. But how many of us have gardens where we are able to sustain ourselves for the entire year? Anybody? No, so you need the grocery store and the farmers who do that in order. That's a great example of the help that we need, because our practical needs, we can't get them all on our own. We need one another. We need the assistance of others. But like evangelization, like being an intentional disciple, there are many ways to fulfill that, and I could only offer you a few of them. One of them is the many ministries that we have here in the parish. There are so many of them, and one of the most important ones that's coming up, especially starting in September, is the need for help with our young people. I'm so excited about the programs that we've been working on putting together for our young people in the parish starting in September. But in order to make those programs successful, we need help, and we really need a lot of different people to do a lot of different things. And you can do that. And if more people help, then you only have to do it every now and again. So that's one of the ministries, and I might encourage you to talk to Jane, who was up here earlier doing the core announcement. She's kind of in charge of all that, and boy, could she use some help. Could you be of service that way? We have a great organization in the parish that meets some very practical needs for people who are in some ways unable to fulfill those needs in their own lives themselves, and that's our St. Vincent de Paul Society. And the St. Vincent de Paul Society, that's the kind of group of people, they don't like to toot their own horn and tell everybody what they're doing, but I'll tell you what they're doing because I think it's important. You know, they provide food for people who are in need. They go to the grocery store and buy a sack of food for somebody who doesn't have any food. They'll provide oil or coal for people in the wintertime who need heat in their homes. They even help people who are looking for homes to find a place to live. In the Christmas time, they get together and visit all of our shut-ins, all of them, and even those who are in our nursing homes, and bring them a poinsettia plant and some cookies. And the great thing that they did this last year is they had the kids in our religious education program in our school write cards offering prayers, spiritual bouquets to them. And what a great thing that is. An important aspect of what they do, and probably the most important aspect of what they do, is to help people grow in their spiritual lives. Because the first thing of the St. Vincent de Paul Society is that idea of prayer and spiritual growth. I was talking to Rosemary Heckler. She's not here. She was at the 8 o'clock Mass this morning, who is the president of the St. Vincent de Paul. And one of the things that she talked about, what they would like to be able to do, but they need help doing this, is to actually go out and visit people in their homes and see the conditions in which they live and how we can better, as a community, help people in those difficult situations. We need help in the parish, and people can serve in different ways, even right here in church. When you're here on Sunday, you know, with serving and with sacristans and people who help get things ready for Mass. But even a simple thing to do, that's a way of being of service, because not everybody can do everything, is something as simple as making sure the books in the pews, the songbooks, are stacked neatly at the end of the pew after Mass on your way out of the pew. And if you see an announcement sheet, to pick it up and leave it in the back there, so our church looks orderly. Another area that I really think is important, and you've noticed that in the last year or more, I've been using this technology so that you can read the words as I say them from the scriptures. And I know that, you know, having a TV screen in church, some folks might think, ooh, I don't know, that's such a great idea. But, you know, different people learn different ways. And some of us, myself included, need to see the words when I hear them, because it's just a different way to learn. And we all learn differently, and doing this really is a way to meet people's needs. But we can expand on this and grow this. And one of the ways that I would really like to grow it is if we could do something what's called live streaming. In other words, a camera to actually video our Sunday worship. And imagine being able to broadcast that so that people who are unable to be here because of age, because of illness, because of traveling, could get on their computer and watch Mass from their own church. You know, I can't do all of that by myself. I need help, and certainly there's a lot of people who are interested in the technology kind of thing and might be willing to help make that a reality. You know, let me go back kind of as a conclusion to the first reading, to Abraham. You need to know that Abraham and Sarah, at this point in their lives, had been of an advanced age where having children was probably not going to happen. So they remained faithful in spite of what that meant for them. And they were willing to serve in spite of the feeling of being abandoned by God. And here's what happened. Those three men asked Abraham, "Where is your wife Sarah?" And Abraham replied, "There in the tent." And one of them said, "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah will have a son." You see, there is a promise for those who serve, and that promise is a blessing from God, a blessing that seems impossible. In fact, a year or so later, if we were to read the story in the book of Genesis, we would discover quickly that Sarah indeed had a child. She gave birth to a son, Isaac. God blessed them because of their faithfulness, because of their willingness to serve. What's the service that you willingly give to your parish, your community of faith, your community at large, even the world? How will you make the cross of Jesus Christ your trademark, your brand, your tattoo?